Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey,
Mr. Felder.
brother
Like
Jamal.
I'm gonna have to drop a hot 16 real quick. No, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do that.
Listen. I'm always ready. I'm always ready. What's going on,
See
brother?
me in the booth like that.
Listen, man. Wait till the microphones come in.
I know,
Better
right?
yet, wait till the stand come in. I already got the microphone. I got that. When I went and bought it, they was like, "This the microphone that Michael Jackson made Thriller with." I said, "Thriller?" But I said, "Oh wait, man, look. I had it for the past couple of years."
Man,
You see that right there? I'm gonna start asking for folks to give some sponsorship dollars.
hey, look, man. They make us look good. We make you look good. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get T-shirts and hats, all kind of stuff, man. But how you doing?
I'm doing well. Just been running, getting a couple of things in order through these different opportunities and business ventures and everything along those lines. So, just making it happen.
Yeah, same, man. It's been a good week, and man, I got a wedding anniversary coming up, man.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to that. You know,
how many years? How many years is it?
My bad. Total is 14, right? Married is 13. Man, but when you really look at it, it's really been, I've been in preparation all my life for this.
Only you could come up with that response to that. I've been in preparation.
Listen, but if I said anything else, I'd be lying. You know what I'm saying?
Got you.
You know what I mean? So man, shout out to my wife, Elisa, for putting up with me. Um, she has had to share me with my professional endeavors, with the community, with now with my children. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and we only really get a couple times a year to really, really, really make our spouses and significant others feel as special as they should feel.
Yes.
Every day is a is a race. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got big teams going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, interesting thing about it, and that also every day is anniversary, right? With so many things not being guaranteed.
Right.
You know, it's a difference to celebrate 365 days when you're not guaranteed to see the person 2 days from now. So let alone next year. So the ability to be able to interact, love on, care for, and be in the presence of someone who you care for and you love dearly, is important to do as often as we can.
Absolutely. That's why this podcast is so important, man. That level up past corporate trauma, because believe it or not, the innocent bystanders and victims of our personal corporate trauma are the people who are closest to us.
Yep.
That get a chance or are the recipients of us overcompensating for who and what we can't be at work or professionally, right? You know, we try to be that at home, and it don't quite work out as well as it is. As what you telling yourself in your head, it didn't quite come out like that at home. You know, with the spouse, husband, wife, with your children and family, parents. You know what I'm saying? So it's so important that whatever amount of time we get to dedicate to work and professional life, whether that's 40 hours a week, whether that's 80 hours a week, whether that's 20, that we can really put that in the pocket so that we can be present for the important things in life. And the only way that I've really understood that you could do that, Rob, is you got to be authentic in both places. You got to be authentic at home. You got to be authentic at work. You know what I'm saying?
That makes so much sense. That authenticity, and the biggest part of it is taking ownership of the role that you play everywhere that you go.
Yeah.
Right. Because I really want to make sure. I don't want folks to think about what we do on the podcast or corporate trauma to be about people crying and complaining,
right?
And not recognizing the role that we play in all of these pieces. The biggest part about it is being able to pinpoint what it is, or what are you going through, what are you experiencing, and then helping you process and think about ways for you to get through those things.
Right.
It's not a pity party. It's not a pity party.
And level up.
We leveling up. And also I would say to folks, it's not about thinking that you got to go out and ask companies, bosses, supervisors to move so differently, because at some point in time, the power is yours, right? To what is that? Can't remember the cartoon, but it's one of those cartoon Captain Planet, right? The power is yours, right? And it's it's so crazy that when we really look at it, that phrase is really talking about you have the power to make changes. Right. It just depends on how active you are. And it's so often that we expect other people to do the hard work, whether it's in our communities, whether it's in our relationships, or whether it's at work. So when we're talking about corporate trauma and we're talking about leveling up past corporate trauma, it's about, hey, we're not just going to speak about it. We're not just going to gripe about it. We're not just going to throw ideas around changes into a box. We're not just going to sit in the lunchroom and say, oh, we don't like this, or no. We're saying we're going to identify it, and then we're going to get past it. We're going to put in place different tools, different strategies, different ideas to get us through these things. And some of those ideas, maybe you just need to leave. Right? At some point in time, this relationship doesn't work. It's gone past its stage in your life to be successful. And sometimes we just got to be honest about where we are and what we're doing and who we're with.
What'd you say, Rob? What?
We all quit. Give me a burger. No. We all quit.
And that obviously, folks out there in the corporate trauma community, that's the extreme. And be quiet as kept. We're trying to prevent that, right? We want people and companies and organizations to be successful. But walking away is not an option. It is definitely an option. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the one life that we have, right? So hey, so we had to switch gears this week. Our guest, the lovely Miss Kiana Blast from the Dark Sugar Podcast. We had to reschedule our dear friend and contributor to. We're gonna try to get her next week, but we threw an audible. We're switching gears, right? And something that me and Rob been talking about for a while, and wanted to really get back into. And Rob, I'm excited about this conversation too, right? Because it has kind of left national news notoriety, and that is the Operation Varsity Blues, the college admissions scandal. And you and I both have had some extensive time on college campuses. You and I both are former student athletes. You and I both are college degree holders. You and I both are former college preparatory scholars. In high school, you and I both went to 2-year schools and leveled up from those 2-year schools because of the economic and exposure benefits to us both. Academically and athletically, gave us an opportunity to finish our education at 4-year institutions that are accredited by the NCAA, right? And you and I both are educated young men, based on the unit of measurement that our generations both hold, right? And man, the irony of this whole thing, it really touched me deep because of, I went to 3 different colleges in 3 different states, right? Not because I was a bad student, not because of anything other than things happening at the speed of life.
Yeah.
Family crisis. It was money. It was me, really picking up the pieces of my academic life back together, finding some money. We talking Pell Grants. We talking financial aid. We talking, weekends working at the mall. Evenings I'm banquet serving at hotels. Like I'm putting it together, trying to. And one of the things that Rob, man, I would love to get your take on in a minute is. I never wanted, one of my insecurities growing up was I was serious about being a student athlete, about playing basketball, right? Because it was actually a family pastime. My grandfather started playing basketball in the 40s when it wasn't popular for inner city young black men to play basketball. It was still relatively a sport for others to play when it was too cold to play anything outside recreationally. And then the bigger sports, baseball and football and lacrosse, those were bigger sports back then. So the color line hadn't really been broken. And so my grandfather started playing basketball and passed down. So by the time he got to me, I was 3rd generation. You know what I mean? It was in my DNA. And so I was serious about it. And it helped me get through a lot of stages of my life. And I never wanted to be considered the dumb jock. Like that's a whole stereotypical kind of edgy trope from my upbringing. And it was hard, man, being a student athlete. Like putting that much time in your craft.
A lot of time.
Right. And I was a decent player, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't parade All-American or anything like that, but I still was committed. I still went to practice, played in all the games, you know what I'm saying, did the off-season stuff. And the more time I spent there, it took away from time that I could have been studying and reading books, practicing. I played the saxophone growing up. You know what I'm saying? That's a skill set
Nice.
that I could have optimized. You know what I'm saying? So it's a sacrifice. And I'm so glad I did it, Rob. And I think that you would agree with me because there's so many things I learned,
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
in my particular learning style through team sports and being a part of a team that I employ to this day as a professional, as a family man, and whatnot. But it was difficult, man. It was hard. And see, the irony of this whole
Uh-huh.
story for me was my little sister. She told my baby sister. She told me one time. She was like, "Jamal, it was easy for you to graduate college because you played basketball." I was like, "What?" I was like, first of all, I'm a Division III basketball player, right? You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I give you 25 in a minute. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Don't leave me open, right? But I was
Yeah.
one of those basketball players that played at a level that you really had to love the game because I didn't get any financial perks from it. It was because I just absolutely loved it and want to play. I didn't get any special treatment in the classroom. So I had to clarify that for her. And so and that was many years ago. So many years later, as we talk about the college admission scandal, where the affluent were posing their children as potential athletes and paying money to get them into the side door of the institution as an athlete, right? And some of these students wasn't even really serious about going to college, and they didn't really need to. So, and the irony of that whole situation, here I am, I'm a serious athlete, and I'm trying to get in. But the number one indicator for college success and graduation for potential degree holders is not academics. It's not SAT or standardized testing scores. It's not geographic location. It's not even race per se. We can have that conversation. We can drill down. But the number one indicator for higher education academic success is wealth. So, that whole irony of the whole, ethics violations and the 54-person indictment with the alleged mastermind behind it, Rick Singer, and all of the affluent people that he represented and took money from to get their children to school. It's just a mind blowing concept to me. You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
Well, one thing. I'm not surprised. My mind is not blown. I don't know if that feedback is just in my ear or not, but hopefully it is.
Okay.
But there's nothing about that surprises me, right? When you think about how people have always done what they felt was necessary for their family, it doesn't surprise me. Right? Whether right or wrong, these folks had an idea of what success was and what their kids needed to be successful, and they said by any means necessary.
That's correct.
Right? And the only issue is that there is a cost for that. Right? They don't pay the cost, the real cost, because everyone would think that the real cost is the money that was paid. The real cost was the slot that was lost for the person that could have jumped into it. Right. Exactly. So there's so many folks who talk about affirmative action, but the difference between this and what folks think happens with affirmative action, many, if not all of these individuals did not deserve, they didn't earn, whether it was collegiately or academically. They didn't earn the right to be at those schools. Maybe they didn't have the grades. They didn't have all these different components that make up what these schools should be looking for. Compared to on the other end, these folks who are coming underneath or fall underneath some of the affirmative action pieces, these individuals tick all the boxes. They're just as compliant. They're just as skillful, just as masterful. right, as anyone else that's going out for the application. So for me, I'm not surprised. It's disheartening because I know for a fact there's some folks who are probably like, man, that's why I didn't get that scholarship that year, right? Or maybe that's why I didn't end up at that school. But at all points in time, there's a lesson to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone else is fighting for themselves, their own success, their own personal success, if we continue to get caught up in arguing about the rules, right, we'll be losing while they're contemplating whether or not they want to change the rules. Right? I'm big on, like, you ever hear when folks say, hey, keep it out the hands of the ref.
Right.
I need to understand what the game, like, what's the game plan, right? To keep it with the sports analogy. What's the game plan? Who am I up against? What don't they like? What do they like? What are the expectations? And then I'm gonna play that game, and I am going to apply pressure. That's the one thing we always got to think about. How do I apply pressure? Not just talk about it, not just tell folks we don't like it, but I'm going to apply pressure, and come hell or hot water, you're going to feel a flame up your behind. Right? And I think if we get to that universal place as a community or communities, right, we'll be much better off. But I know as a student athlete, man, I don't think anyone who's met me or when I was younger would say I was a bad kid. But man, if sports probably didn't save my life, I don't know, outside of prayer and the mentors and the leaders that were I was blessed to have in my life, I don't know. Right. I definitely wouldn't have went to college if it wasn't for sports, because that wasn't something that was on my mind. Like, oh no, that wasn't it. So sports helps a lot.
And I want people to know a little bit about you. Robert holds 3 higher education degrees, and is an extremely well-read and academically sound individual. Right, is not a stereotypical inner city kid. Right, it is that you were or I were. We just needed the exposure, right, and the understanding of, all right, this is better, so let's do better. I was looking at the Breakfast Club. Shout out to the Breakfast Club, man. I really enjoy their program. And they had Malcolm Gladwell on their show, the author, the columnist, the essayist, and the now podcaster of Revisionist History. And he was talking about his research in the small HBCU of Dillard University in New Orleans, and then also Xavier University, both schools, right? Dillard University, a small HBCU who's ranked really low on the national college ranking list, pound for pound, right, has contributed in 2019 more African American physicists, undergraduates, than its big brother in Ivy League mammoth, Harvard University, who jokingly has more money than General Motors, right? And hundreds of African American students. And we already know that the best and the brightest go to Harvard. We're talking about valedictorians, salutatorians, those who score perfect on the science and math, and and the SAT. Extremely, extremely intelligent young people. So it's like, he asked the question: how is it that little financially struggling small Dillard University can produce more undergraduates that are African American in physics than Harvard University, and why they rank so low? And what he was saying, Robert, was that the ranking system is based off of something that's called prestige and reputation scores, which at the end of the day doesn't speak to how well they are educating their demographic. Where the average income for somebody who goes to Dillard University is $30,000 a year, right? Where Harvard has so much money in their endowment, pretty much everybody can go to school there for free for the next 100 years. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
how is that school better?
Mm-hmm.
You know, pound for pound in this one area, and then up the street in New Orleans is Xavier University, which produces more pre-med African American students, right, Black and brown people, than any other school in the United States, right?
Wow.
Proportionately.
Yep.
And I asked myself, why? And it's psychological safety. I can do more with less if I feel safe, right? So now imagine going to a school like Dillard, going into the workforce, working for someone who graduated, and this is a far-fetched scenario. I'm going to get into, you know, the conversation with our guest, our great guest tonight. So imagine going to a school similar to Dillard with academic prowess of being able to educate on the level that Dillard does in that demographic, that underprivileged, those that are coming out of poor and impoverished environments, or Xavier, right? And you work for somebody who graduated from Harvard, who was a recipient of the Varsity Blues college admissions scandal. See, this is a recipe. See, the way my mind works, Rob, this is a recipe. This is a recipe for corporate trauma, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now think about it. Think about these insecurities. Think about all of the stereotypes. Think about any and everything. What that conversation is like. I go to Harvard. I mean, I went to Harvard. You went to Dillard. It's like, and then you came up the rough side of the mountain. I didn't, and because we're in close proximity to each other, the knowledge gap between us is not that wide, if not at all. But the prestige and the reputation factor of a Harvard versus a Dillard comes into play in those interpersonal relationships, which is a recipe for a pervasive culture that is called corporate trauma. What do you think?
And it's just like a bottle of wine, right? They've done studies after studies. You could switch up what's inside of a bottle of wine, and you will see that people will say, the majority of the time, they will say the wine that was in the bottle that had the largest price tag was the best, right? It's like one of those things that is consistent, and I feel like it's the same with your degree. Now, granted, your degree comes along with perks because of the people who came before you, right? That's how you're able to make more money, because they're like, hey, the expectation is that this is what these individuals deserve. For me, I'm always, when I'm advising colleges and universities, or if I'm going to different places and I'm doing workshops, the one thing that I talk about is don't get caught up just identifying your population. Oh, they're students of color. Their lack of food, lack of money, first generation students. Start to discuss what's necessary for them to be successful, right? And I bring that up just to bring the piece that you touched on earlier, and this will probably bring us closer to touching with Cebien. Access and exposure is the biggest thing that you can give to someone outside of straight up lacing their pockets with big time cash out of them bank accounts up in Mass. Look, I'm rhyming today.
Right.
When you really look at it, people gotta really think about, hey, if you know all these different things about your student body, then what do you do? What type of bridges are you creating to help them get over barriers? Or are you just gonna put up signs and tell folks we got people who struggle here? Because if you go to certain places, we talk more about how folks are struggling on the campus than we do talk about the reality of not just helping them while they're in school, but we're going to set them up for success when they leave.
That's so important,
right? And that's the challenge at all points in time. And I'll say this back to the basketball analogy, and this is connected with the education and then ultimately connected to our special guests. when I'm talking to student athletes, I always say, make sure, regardless of what school you decide to play any sport at, make sure the game plan and the playbook fits for you. Right. You could go to the biggest name school. You can go to a school that wants you to start day one in any sport. But if that playbook doesn't work for you, if that playbook doesn't allow you to be masterful, if it doesn't set you up with alley-oops, if it doesn't allow you to have one-on-one coverage with the slowest linebacker or safety or wide receiver on the football field, then you can miss out on what you're truly looking for. And then what does that mean for education? Whatever school you decide to go to, make sure they do things that you need. It's not about other people. It's about what's going to set me up. And if we have any parents that are listening, the degree from prestigious schools are awesome. But you need people who are willing to fight for you.
That's right.
You want people who are going to call somebody up, say, I got this person and that person, and I need them to have this internship. I need them to have an externship. I need them to shadow you before they get on our campus freshman year. This is what I need because this is what this person is demanding. This is what's necessary for them to be successful. And then when they graduate, we're not talking about student loans. We're talking about the buku dollars as well as this person being set up in a way that they can be successful. That's what we have to start demanding from these relationships, these financial relationships that we have with school. And I'll end it on that piece. We have to make sure that we let schools know who the true customer is.
Right.
It's not your professor. It's not your administration. It's not your president. I'm your customer.
That's right.
I'm your customer. The idea that someone dictates to me all the time what things are, and I'm telling you it doesn't work for me. Right? In a school, it'll be quick. Well, if it doesn't work for you, you got to leave. We got to have that hat on as well. We have to have that hat on as well. I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. What a great segue for our special guest this evening. We would love to introduce to the podcast community, brother, a friend. I consider him a subject matter expert. You know what I'm saying? A bronzed Floridian, if I say so myself, Mr. Cebien Alty of Cebien Enterprises, CEO, president, and founder. Cebien specializes in professional development and helping young people from all backgrounds, from all socioeconomic statuses, from any school, regardless of your GPA, regardless of your major, regardless of your field of endeavor. Cebien got that work for you to help you to be successful, transitioning to the next level. So just let that sink in on how good you have to actually be to be able to provide value in a real way to that many people, especially of a diverse talent pool. And Cebien, we want to get your opinion on this subject matter, but before we start bombarding you with questions, man, please come off mute and introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself to the corporate trauma.
Oh, they go that laugh. They go that laugh.
You know what I'm saying?
That's there it goes.
They go that laugh.
Oh man, and please keep me in line and keep me in order because this is like a reunion for me, and so I apologize ahead of time. So let me apologize to the corporate trauma, audience and all of that.
They don't care.
Because I'm a lot. And when you all were talking, I was talking to myself and back here, amen. And I'm like, yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Like that. But with all that said, let me first really show my appreciation and gratitude to you, Brother Jamal, and obviously Rob, because I think the work that you all are doing is phenomenal. Before, you all went live, I was chatting it up with Jamal and really was asking him what the genesis was behind taking the corporate trauma narrative onto this type of platform. And for me, it's all about leveling up, right? You were giving the people, just like you said, you were giving them tidbits. And then the next level of that after exposure is really making sure that they're educated on that exposure that they now have access to. And so as you all are going through the conversations that you do on a weekly basis, I commend you all, because for you, Jamal, you know that for me, I encountered corporate trauma when I heard it from you.
Yes.
And so I did not realize that there was a name to what I was experiencing in my daily, weekly, monthly, yearly experience as a corporate professional. And so I thank you for putting a name to the ailment, I would say, that I had, and was able to use some of that information to enlighten myself and then push past that. But with all that said, Cebien Alty here. I am the CEO and founder of Cebien Enterprises Worldwide. We are a career readiness and talent solutions company. And without going into all the spiel, because Brother Jamal did a really good job of explaining it, in a nutshell, what we provide is a resource for students across all levels at the undergrad level to receive professional development that centers on soft skills. And maybe we'll get into that. But those soft skills are those skills that are transferable across industry, regardless of what you're going to go into. You can apply them whether you are in the law field, whether you are in accounting, whether you're in finance, marketing, etc. And so for me, I decided to venture off and provide this resource to students and remove what I call barrier points. Because to me, it didn't make sense when you have students raising their hands and saying, hey, XYZ organization, I want access, I want opportunity, I want development. But then on the other side, we were saying, you know what, actually, you don't meet this criteria, this criteria, this criteria. I get it. We're going through this conversation, right? So no, I'm going to stop you at the gate. And I said, what does it cost us to train, to equip, you know, our young folks, especially our young Black and brown faces, with the skills necessary, especially when we're talking about closing the racial wealth gap? I'm like, how are we going to do that if we're not equipping our young folks with the skills that they need to actually enter into the workforce and then start to build that wealth from the ground up? And so the work I do, if you cannot tell, I'm extremely passionate and dedicated to it. And so we have truly created an equitable and inclusive ecosystem where students from all levels, I don't care if you are a freshman at a 2 point whatever or a senior at a 4.0, you will receive the same professional development training, and then you're able to take that and then catapult your early career opportunity in the form of an internship, co-op, or entry-level job. And so hopefully that intro does it justice and people understand the work that I do, but I'll stop there and yield the mic.
Man, that does it. And I highly encourage anybody who was as riveted by his articulation of what he does to don't take our word for it. Hit Cebien up and allow him to show you what he does in action. Like he is an incredible professional, and his ability to bring out the best of our young people is unparalleled.
I feel smarter already.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I hope people take that as a compliment, and they know they like Rob always throwing shots. No. I am telling you right now, I have interacted, worked around, seen this brother work. I just listened to him speak, and he reminded me of how awesome he is. I don't know if y'all get it. And I will tell you right now, let me be frank with y'all. I'm not co-signing too many people. In my mind, I'm like the dopest guy in the world. Like I just don't tell.
This is my mindset right here. I'm like, all right.
I just don't say that to people. You know what I mean? See, I just don't say that to people. But I will tell you, when I get around folks who do it how I do it, but in their own way, I take my hat off and say, "Here you go, sir." So I hope that y'all take this opportunity to check in.
Yeah.
Because the craziest thing, we make time for all of the things that are not important for us going forward. And if you have a child, a young person about to go to high school, about to go to college,
right,
about to go into the working world, this is a conversation you cannot miss. And this is one of those times where either you hit us up afterwards, you hit up Cebien afterwards, and this is somebody that you check in with because he has experience, whether it's working with the colleges, working with the corporate companies, building out programs to help them keep people. Like, I don't know, and I almost start asking questions, but I know it's not. I don't ask. I'm not gonna ask the first question. That's not my job, right? That's not my job.
There's all personal consult session right here.
Listen. I don't think folks understand. Like, you have to be passionate about what you do. The brother up here, like an NFL player, right? When he came on, I said he looking like an NFL player out here, like he about to go tackle somebody.
Yeah, man.
But then, but that passion is about your kids.
Exactly.
So I hope that y'all check in on that piece and recognize you need someone like this in your corner. Somebody who's going to be as straightforward with you as possible and also bring to life the obstacles that your kids or you might experience if you're in college. So I'll leave it there. My cosign is in. I might not cosign another person for the next 4 or 5 years.
Listen, so, man, if we don't tell them, Rob, they're not gonna know. You know what I'm saying?
That's also part of me.
Somebody on here to ask questions.
Yeah, that's also part of me giving him his flowers.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I want to also give him his flowers, and I want to get in the habit. And I was just talking to my boy the other day. He said, "Rob, man, we do a poor job, not just of giving other people their flowers, but accepting ours."
Exactly.
Right. So I'm gonna give you yours because you gave me mine one day in a way that you can do. Right, because people know I don't care to sit up here and be typing. I talk, and I will not miss the opportunity to give you your flowers, bro. You are awesome, like inside out, heart, mind, soul, the whole entire joint, man. I just want to give you your flowers, and I know there are some kids whose professional careers were saved by you and as well as their lives. So kudos to you, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Robin, and I receive it 100%. And just to really quick off of what you said, we have to understand and we have to recognize, and it's not a matter of being prideful or being cocky or arrogant, but it's knowing what you know. And I say that often. I say I might not be the best, but I know what I know.
Right.
And I don't care if there's a million people doing what I do. No one can do it like Cebien Alty can. You know what I'm saying? And so I accept. Right.
Put my meme up. Put my meme up. Talk that. Listen, I'm going to cut you off because I just want to say this. That's what we have to start bringing everywhere we go. Yeah. Everywhere we go from now on, we can't minimize ourselves.
You can't.
Right? Especially as Black men, we can't limit ourselves and minimize who we are to the rest of the world. I'm going to just back up from there. Because you hitting up, I didn't start sweating, man.
You're right. You're right. You know, there's this whole buzzword in the marketplace now, your zone of genius. And I go with that. I'm like, yeah, I operate in my zone of genius and this is what it looks like. And so embrace that. And don't cower and be ashamed for what you know that you do well and the work that you all are doing, you all do it well. And so I give you both your flowers as well and commend you for the work in this conversation, because I know we're restrained by time, but this conversation is necessary because you have students right now that are, you know, at their final year in high school and they're frantic right now because they're, you know, they have schools that they want to get into, and now they're like, well, am I on the right track to prepare to even make it in, to get the eyes even to look at my application? And so your conversation is timely because it starts early. The runway starts early, especially for the underrepresented, the unseen, and the disadvantaged, quote unquote, student that is looking to make that break into the higher education realm.
Absolutely. And Cebien, I'm gonna jump right into it, right? You know, and if you're listening out there and you know anyone that has children with higher education aspirations, it's time to go get them and encourage them to tap in, right? So as a scholastic student on their way to what they feel is higher education, whether that be college, whether that be 4-year, 2-year certificate program, whatever that is, right? To compete with their peers at the top level. What we do know, especially based on the Varsity Blues, Operation Varsity Blues college admissions scandal, is that if you as a scholastic student in high school, if you're not participating in 3, 4, 5 AP classes between your junior year, right, and you have significantly sacrificed your personal life, social life, right, extracurricular activities, and in replace of those things, you are studying and doing homework and trying to thrive in these advanced placement classes. If you're not doing that, based on the way things are going now, right, and they're rapidly changing, you can cross out the top 50 schools off your list, right? But that's the top 50 schools that you could apply to and get admitted to aren't the only places that you could go and receive a top-notch education that is customized for you, like Rob said, that's going to put you in a place to be successful. But there's some general things that you need to help you navigate these spaces. So, Cebien, what are the top 2 or 3 things any aspiring college student or pre-professional, what should they be focusing on, regardless of the prestige or the college ranking of their school of choice, right? Because we know that what's being exposed here is that stuff is not really built off of anything concrete.
Right. And so great question, Jamal. And so I would say, for me, this is right in my realm and what I operate in. And so regardless of the prestige, where you're going to go to school, et cetera, what matters in the quote unquote real world are those transferable skills that you can take with you anywhere. And so, which is why I really focus on professional development that centers around transferable skills. Yeah, you can go to an Ivy League. Yes, you go to a prestigious school. Yes, you can go to a school that's $50,000, $60,000, whatever it is. But are they equipping you with the necessary real-time transferable skills that you can step off that college campus with and successfully transition into the workforce? That's what's important. And so for me, finding resources and access to opportunities where you can develop yourself with skills like communication, effective communication, skills like emotional intelligence. And that's a whole bucket, but because of time's sake, I'm not going to get into that. But let's just say in the environment that our society is in, emotional intelligence is key. Do you have the critical thinking skills? Like, can you actually navigate and work in a team environment, especially if it's a hybrid of virtual and in-person? How do you navigate through that and gain recognition and propel your career in a virtual or hybrid space? Do you have these necessary skills, these soft skills, quote unquote, that you don't necessarily get on a college campus to help you successfully transition out of that environment and into the ecosystem that we call corporate and what that looks like? And so for me, it's looking at opportunities that give you access to equip yourself with those skills. And soft skills is a whole library and category, but look into that for the folks that are listening and that will rewatch this. Look into soft skills and transferable skills and find ways to equip your young self, or if you're a parent looking at this, your young person with those development skills. Regardless of what school they go to, they will need those skills in the real world. Because you can have someone from an Ivy League and you can have someone from a trade school that's working at the same company in the same department, and that person that is at that trade school that knows how to effectively communicate and problem solve is going to go a lot further and faster than that person with that Ivy League degree. I can guarantee you that because I know that from experience.
Right. Right. Rob, I see you shaking your head. It reminds me, that's some of the stuff we got on the basketball court and on the football field.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, and it all makes sense, and that's why I said I already knew what type of vibe this was going to be, and so I'm not even going, like I said, I ain't going to chime in too much because I know we got some questions we want to get to, and I want the people to really get this stuff. So I know you got some more questions, Jamal.
Yeah. So, Cebien, what should companies, places of employment, or organizations that are designed to help bring out the entrepreneurial spirit, even of young people that may be wanting to build businesses, especially in this era of free enterprise through social media and the virtual space, right? So whether you're working for an organization as an employee or an associate as a professional adding value, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you're building entrepreneurs or you're employing people, what do these organizations, these companies that people go to work for or work with, what do they need to know to retain talent?
Yeah.
That you are actually, based on how you're preparing young people in your sphere of influence, what would you advise these organizations, these people these places that are building opportunities for the next generation to work out in? Like, what would you suggest as far as retention and retaining these people?
Yeah, that's another great question, because I actually addressed this a few weeks ago through the social platforms that I exist on, because I provide a lot of free resources and access around various topics. And so this was one that I touched on. And so really quick, and without getting too deep into it, the retention practices, I did a poll and I polled my audience on what's the expected lifetime of an employee in this current environment. And 71% of the responses said you can get maybe 1 to 3 years out of us. That's it. That's as long as I'm going to stay at a company for any time. That's 1 to 3 years. And I had employers, recruiters, these students chiming in. And so as a collective, they said about 70 or so percent, 1 to 3 years you can get out of that. And so the tactics that employees need to look at is really what does their onboarding process really look like? And when I say onboarding, I mean a true onboarding process that onboarding to me, and I do this with companies, it starts before the person actually walks into the door and sits at their desk and receives their equipment. Onboarding starts from the time that offer is extended and you start to orient that person into the environment and the culture and expectation. And then you make them feel as if they belong before they even get there. So when they do get there day one, they're not like a deer in the headlights wondering which way to go and what's going to go on, and they're following the schedule. Onboarding is more than just a schedule of you talk to this person and talk to this person and then you're off and running, start producing. That's not onboarding. That's work. You know what I'm saying? And so the onboarding process really has to be a process of belonging and educating and really making them feel like they've accessed the culture of the company before they even come into it. The other thing that was big that stood out was recognition. And folks, when they hear recognition, they might be like, well, titles and pay. Not necessarily. Recognition is simply making sure that I feel as a team member that you hear me and that you see me.
Right.
And so every individual likes to be heard and seen at some level. And so finding creative and innovative ways to interact and engage your team members through employee engagement tactics is another thing that I think companies need to focus on. And it doesn't need to cost a lot. Attention and actually sitting down and scheduling a one-on-one or touching base with me or cultivating healthy conversations, as I've seen you do, Jamal, in some of these spaces, is part of employee engagement, letting them know that you hear them and you see them. And so outside of that, there's obviously, development opportunities and all of that goes into play. But those are the things I can say companies can do with ease, because they already have them in place at some level. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look at your onboarding process to make sure that it's more than just a training calendar or a meet and greet. Look at the recognition opportunities and growth opportunities that you have within the organization, so your employees can actually take advantage of those. And obviously communication is extremely vital. Clear and often communication.
And you know what, Rob, it sounds like Cebien is saying it's all about relationship building.
That's all I heard.
From the
beginning that's all I heard.
To the end and all the way in the middle. And see, optimizing the opportunities for relationship building cannot exist in a place where corporate trauma is pervasive. Can't work. It's not going to happen. You have to put humanity back into going to work and being a professional. These are people, right? These are human beings that come with their own bags, and you have to help them unpack so they can stay a while. Because if they can't unpack those bags and unpack those boxes and put them in the closets, guess what's going to happen as soon as the opportunity presents itself? Because their stuff is already in the bag.
Yeah,
I'm picking this stuff up and I'm out, right? And that's why it's 1 to 3 years. A few years ago, it was 3 to 5.
right.
So it's getting shorter and shorter. So, you know, as Rob always say, I hope folks is listening, because it's extremely important to understand, because this is what's making people tick right now. You know what I'm saying?
And in this piece right here, right? How many organizations approach onboarding, approach hiring from I'm building a relationship perspective, right? People don't even call it that in the workplace.
That's right.
Right. And when you had them just hiring folks as cogs, right? We get them, we burn them out, we spit them out.
Right.
Right. Then you get your unions and be like, nah, listen, we got to change up some workplace practices. We still understand y'all gonna work us hard because that's what work is, but we just gonna have to change a couple of things. As we go into this, I'm gonna just call it like this third generation of workplace balance, not work-life balance, but workplace balance, right? In the workplace, what type of balance do we have? What type of relationship do you want? Because I no longer just want to be an employee.
Right.
That's right.
Right? Like, in all honesty, I'm not even too concerned about your brand because I can get the bag anywhere.
Right.
Right. I literally can get the bag anywhere. And to be honest with you, I could take the name that you have after a year and get the money. So if the relationship is short, then so be it. I always say, folks, what type of relationship are you building? Are we focusing on a marathon, or are we focusing on sprints? And I think a lot of times for companies, they're not even thinking about what relationship. And what you just shared was, hey, how do we want to interact with each other?
Right.
Like, how do we want to talk? Like, how are we doing all of these intricate things compared to just saying, hey, get up in here and do your work? That workplace is going. And for the folks who are like, oh, they grimacing their faces right now, to be honest with you, y'all dying out. Literally, oh Lord. literally and figuratively. You're dying out. The workplace that you grew up in, that you said made so much sense.
Right.
That's the normal way of operating, whether we're getting rid of you or you're dying. That whole entire paradigm is shifting. We're not accepting that no more.
It's gone.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just done. So no matter how much money you want to give, folks, they talking about it on CNBC all the time. And I'll just say this. Folks are quitting left and right.
That's it.
You don't own me, sucker. I'm going to make up a meme for that. You don't own me, sucker.
Yeah.
You don't own me, sucker. Like, I'm telling you, that's the mentality. All I want for folks, and I'll leave it on this piece. I just want folks to grab their life back.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's happening at such a rapid pace that they've coined it now. It's the age of the great resignation. So they're up. They know what's happening. They just don't know how to sort of stop the bleeding and stop it. And so hopefully companies are opening their ears and actually engaging in relationship building by having conversations so they can get some of this information so they can sustain.
They need to build a relationship with you.
Right. Absolutely.
There you go.
Because the organizations that are going to survive, right, are the ones that will make the paradigm shift soon enough. And everyone else are going to lose their staff, their workforce, to being able because their workforce is able to bring the skill set right to the marketplace.
Right.
You know, I don't have to go sit in the cubicle no more.
Right.
Which is, you know, and Cebien, my final question for you is, what advice, and you've given some tips, right, to aspiring, pre-professionals and college students and whatnot, and you've given some key information to organizations around relationship building, right? But what is just some advice you from your heart to everybody else's, to any students, any professionals, anybody out there that's just really looking to find their way in this environment that the corporate and industrial complex is offering them right now? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say pace yourself. And when I say pace yourself, I mean because we're in such a rush to achieve the so-called success and get to the bag, this narrative of 7 streams of income. And hey, slow down and evaluate exactly why you're chasing what you're chasing.
Mm.
And if the education prestige or the company prestige is really going to, at the end of the day, give you what you're looking for.
Right.
If you're looking to create stability and build wealth and, change the trajectory of your family tree, practically, what do you need to actually make that happen? Do you need to attend an actual Ivy League? Do you need to attend a top tier school? Or do you need access and resources and an advocate or an ally?
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? And so I would say pace yourself and really evaluate. I want to get to X. I'm at A. What can I do within my circle of influence to get me there?
Right.
Now, Rob mentioned, mentorship and all of that. That for me is another thing that I am a strong advocate of, is mentorship, because mentorship can get you a long way. It can give you visibility, it can give you access, it can give you opportunity. And so for me, I would say pace yourself, find someone and find the individuals that are in the circles and in the spaces that you want to get into, and have conversations and build relationship. Because it's really that who that's gone. It's who knows you. It's who knows you.
Right.
And so the fact that, and I'll give you a perfect example, I'll use this. It's because you all know me that I was able to come into your environment and share information about what I do.
Facts.
That's
Straight
a
like
real
that.
time, easy example. I
It
know you all.
was a
I could
5-minute
have,
conversation.
right? I could have pushed my way in, but because you know me, because
Right.
you saw something in me, you said, I will give him access and opportunity. Do you see how that works?
Absolutely.
And so just get yourself surrounded by folks who are allies and advocates. Pace yourself and really take a real evaluation of the practical steps and resources that you actually need to get to where you want to get to. And so hopefully that translated to make some type of sense. But I'd love to have conversations with anyone who wants to further it offline.
Tell the good folks how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way to get a hold of me, obviously, you can go onto my website. It's cbeyondenterprises.com. It's the letter C, the word beyondenterprises.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Cebien Alty. It's spelled on the screen. And so if you just spell my name, you'll find me on LinkedIn, and you can connect with me there and we can exchange information. I provide a lot of free resources and tips and tools and all of that, and guides for both colleges, students, and companies across all different topics. And so those are the easiest ways to connect with me. And I'm on IG and all of that under Cebien Enterprises.
Well, Cebien, thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for your time. And
Very
like I
much
was saying, like we've said to you previous, you were on a very short list of preferred people. It just so happened that we got you on a lot sooner than we were thinking. But it was not too late, and this was an incredible. I encourage everybody to take what Cebien said heavy. Don't take it with a grain of salt. If you're a student, if you're a professional, if you're high school, if you're college, if you are a C-suite executive looking for answers to make it through your next quarter, and your employee engagement may be something that you want to address, I highly encourage you to look into getting in contact with Mr. Cebien Alty, because the work that he's doing, you're going to be introduced to him one way or the other.
That's right. There you go.
Either you're gonna work with him directly, or somebody is gonna walk into your building that knows Cebien and has been prepared by what he's given. So either you pick which way you're gonna get a hold of Cebien. So thank you so much, man. We really, really, really appreciate you. And as I say often, you have an open invitation to come back if there's anything that you hear, that you see, that you want to discuss. Consider our platform a open forum for you to come back and speak your mind. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. Thank you, Brother Jamal. Thank you, Rob, for the opportunity. And yeah, you all are, I can't say it enough, you all are doing some phenomenal work. And I just wish you all nothing but all of the good success that is forthcoming your way. And yeah, I look forward to staying connected and seeing your rise, because this work is necessary and needed. And not a lot of us are having these conversations. And so I commend you all. And I give you your flowers and roses and bouquets and all of that stuff.
Thank you. I receive it.
Don't go nowhere.
Oh man,
there we go, Rob. Man, listen. I mean, as I was listening to Cebien, I was reminded, right, as a student of, when we grew up in the inner city, especially in Jersey, right? We didn't want to be associated with having any impediments to the educational experience, right? Learning differences, special ed. We didn't want to be associated with that at all. That was the source of major ridicule and bullying when we was growing up.
Correct.
Right? But as I think about my youth, there are some learning differences that I possess, right? When I sit down and I take standardized tests, it takes me longer because of how I process information.
That's a fact. Same here.
You know what I'm saying? And where I wouldn't advocate for the extra time because of the misunderstanding of what that is, there are people today right now who are from a more affluent background who are advocating for their affluent children to be labeled with the learning difference so that they can get more time on standardized tests, more accommodations in the academic setting to set them up for success. So when Cebien said, pace yourself, look and see who you are. And Rob, when you said, man, what is going to be the environment, the situation that is best suited and customized for my success, please take it from us. We're not just saying it because it sounds smart. We're saying it because it's true. And these are things that we have lived and seen. And as we provide help and assistance and professional development for young people that remind us of ourselves from all backgrounds, these are the things that we're advising, people within our sphere of influence. So, man, what a great conversation. Cebien is really, really, I'm so glad he had an opportunity to share with our community his passion around what he does. And Rob, I'll give you the last word, man, before we sign off.
I'm looking forward to the next time we can bring him on, because I just know there are some things he was able to do at different levels that I truly do believe will help a lot of folks. So I'm looking forward to that. And I would just say Cebien made the best point that we have to think about. Not just who you know, but who knows you. Right? And I've read a book. I don't remember the name of it. I'll hopefully find it another point in time. It says, God doesn't make mistakes. Everyone you need in your life is either there or on their way. That's my son in the background. So I'm a smart boy. Right. They're all in the kitchen. But, it's so often that we think we got to somehow get connected to all these people. But the people who we need to be successful, they're already here, or at least they're on their way. So I say that to all of the folks who are out there who are struggling, who are trying to figure out their way, whether it's corporate trauma, in the education system, whether it's at work, whatever the case may be. don't be afraid to share what you're going through with people who you know you can trust. And maybe that's the piece that you're trying to figure out, who you can trust. But take that time and just tap in and reach out to us. Reach out to us, and maybe we'll walk you through how to handle some of these things. So I wish y'all the best, and then let's just stay connected. Till too soon.
That's right. All right, good people. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in. Throw some comments and some likes in the chat. Right now or after we sign off. Remember, corporate trauma is a sneaky passive trauma that will creep up on you. But when it does, level up. Until next week, we see you. Have a good rest of your evening.
Peace.
Peace.